how are you? How's your vibe? What's going on with you health-wise, mental health-wise, physical health-wise?
Okay.
You show it to the camera. Maybe. To be fair, that could be a good response to the opening question. Yeah. Okay, recording now.
Reporting? Oh, I didn't realize. I thought you were. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It certainly did, yeah.
One. I just want to make sure this is recording from the right one, because obviously Discord's using my symbol, but it doesn't look like it actually like it looked like it was recording, but now I just played it back and I heard nothing. Well, when I'm recording for like animation stuff, I actually record on a portable recording thing, and then I just download the WAV files off of it. So I just opened voice recorder, which I didn't even know I had until you said it, and I was like, well, I'll just search that and see if it shows up. Yeah, but let me just see if I can find it. And I can probably do it there. Um, access resources. Can you not record right with Discord though? Okay. So I've got microphone settings open, and it's giving me, but all it's asking me is like to allow permission, and all the permissions are on. But it's not see what microphone I'm actually using. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, you can do that. Actually, you can double check that stuff. But this one I know how to adjust, so this one I can.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm about as tech savvy as a caveman.
Yes.
So I'm here purely for content and vibe.
I like that. Okay, I got it. Actually, here, I want to move this over here so I can see both. Should I go ahead and start recording now, or just wait till you go? Yes. Oh, like audio clackerboard kind of thing.
So just another note on the intro. So what we'll do, I'll do my intro. Brad, I'll ask you how your shit is. You ask me how my shit is. Then you introduce Dylan, and your first question is, Dylan, how's your shit? Yeah, that makes sense to everybody. And Dylan, when we say how's your shit, it is literally how are you doing? It's just to tie it into the podcast title and give it.
I figured that's what you meant the first time, but I can't resist a shit joke.
Who can? Yeah. You in? Yeah. We go. I don't think we should try and sync up the question. I don't think a chorus line will work. Because you need to give yeah, just do a little intro and then how's your shit, and we'll go from there. Yeah. Or your place. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Clap. Okay, so do you want me to just start the intro? Okay. Hello to you. Okay, we'll start that again. I just made a little alteration to my script and it's completely thrown me because I'm a professional. Okay, ready. Hello to all you audio adventurers out there. Welcome to the very first episode of the Brad and Dan Talk Shit podcast, a podcast in which we discuss the highs and lows of living with a chronic illness. Wherever you find yourself, whatever. Oh, God. Okay, sorry, I'm going to go again. I'm so tired, it's untrue. I, just bear with me a second. My humble apologies. Hello to all you audio adventurers out there. Welcome to the very first episode of the Brad and Dad. Jesus Christ. Okay, sorry.
Once you guys are
Hello.
big, I'll do a note take reel.
Yeah, I think this could be good for, yeah, like you say, the outro. And yeah, anyway, I'll shut up. Or not, as I should be talking. Hello to all you audio adventurers out there. Welcome to the very first episode of the Brad and Dan Talk Shit podcast, a podcast in which we discuss the highs and lows of living with chronic illness. Wherever you find yourself and whatever you. Yeah. Christ, it wasn't this hard last time. My mind is in pieces this week, but we'll discuss that when you ask me about how my shit is. Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, it's talking shit. Welcome to the very first Brad and Dan Talking Shit podcast. Oh, this is good. Pressure is on, and I have fallen to pieces. Okay. No added pressure there. I'm just ruining your time off.
Oh no. Like I said, I'm spending today just kind of going like this, waiting for shit just in the background. So.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready?
But even then, because then I also upgraded the resolution that I'm exporting at. So.
Good. Okay. Hello to all you audio adventurers out there. Welcome to the very first episode of the Brad and Dan Talking Shit podcast, a podcast in which we discuss all the highs and lows of living with a chronic illness. Wherever you find yourself, whether that be enjoying your morning coffee, agreeing to disagree with your significant other, as just. Oh, fuck's sake. Okay. Hello to all you audio adventurers out there. Welcome to the very first episode of the Brad and Dan Talking Shit podcast, a podcast in which we discuss all the highs and lows of living with chronic illness. Wherever you find yourself, whether that be enjoying your morning coffee, agreeing to disagree with your significant other as what is just. My script is wrong, that's why. Yeah, yeah. No, it's. Yeah, that's fine. Let me just. My script's fucked up. So I had a child bothering me for and that my interest while I was writing this. Wherever you find yourself, whether that be enjoying a morning coffee, agreeing to disagree with your significant other as to just how much is too much to spend on something. Okay, fine. Wherever you find yourself, whether that be enjoying your morning coffee, agreeing to disagree with your significant other as to just how much is too much to spend on soft furnishings, or you're simply just relaxing to our dulcet tones, we wish you nothing but peace, love, and positive vibes. My name is Dan, and with me, as always, is the Prime Minister of Positivity, Brad. Each episode, we start with one question, a question that has troubled. Great. Oh, I'll go from the my name is Dan bit again. So, my name is Dan, and with me as always is the Prime Minister of Positivity, Brad. Each episode we start with one of the big questions, a question as old as Father Time, a question that has plagued all the great thinkers and philosophers of our time. Brad, how is your shit? Yeah, don't gloat too much there. Yeah, my shit's been shit given the name. So last week I was working away a lot. I did Swansea and then Newcastle in a couple of days, and I don't know if you know the geography of the UK, but Swansea is actually in South Wales, and Newcastle is in the northernmost point of the UK. So I did a round trip of about 850 miles in 2 days, as well as a pretty stressful time at work. And then towards the end of the week, I was in Dublin as well for work again. And so that was two flights and 2 days in the hospitals working. And then it was my daughter's birthday as well last week, which I missed for work. So then we spent the Sunday in a theme park with finishing off the day with their fireworks spectacular to close for winter, which was linked in with what we have in the UK, which is called Bonfire Night, which is a celebration of an attempted assassination on our king in the in the Stuart era. Um, yeah, it was a rainy, long day, and then the fireworks, amazing as they were, but by the end of the day, I was a broken man. I was hobbling around like a man in his 80s. The stiffness in my joints was just unbearable. And then this week, I think on the back of that, I've just been so tired. It's untrue. Um, and then, as any parent will gleefully tell you, well, one of my children has brought a cold home as well, which has just wiped me out, which is why I currently look like I'm ready to pass out while talking to you guys. So apologies for that. But no, other than that, I had the joy of going for some bloods doing. I went to my local hospital and they told me it would be a 3 hour wait to get my two weekly bloods, which was yeah, yeah. But I managed to use some contacts to get them done a little bit quicker today. So I didn't have to wait the 3 hours, but I will next time. But hey ho, I'm still standing. I'm talking to you. It's all good. It's a Friday night. I'm on the rock and roll H2O. So yeah, it's all good. That is that's some top mug game. Well done. So yes, for
um, it takes on a whole other meaning when you lead with of outhouse cartoons. How's your shit? Um, um, yeah, and purely coincidental. I've had that since I think before we met actually. Yeah, no, I'm doing good. I've been very busy lately, but have a maybe an opportunity to catch my breath a little bit coming up soon. So I'm looking forward to that. That shit's good.
Okay, so Dylan, I'm interested, and I'm sure our millions and millions of listeners out there will be interested as to what your relationship with Brad is. Now, obviously, I'm a little bit aware, but could you just tell us a little bit about the work you do together on the Crohn's Awareness Project?
Sure. So I've known Brad for how long has it been now? We had a friend during Facebook not that long ago. Oh, shit. So almost 10 years then, I guess. I'm up pretty soon on 10 years. But yeah, it started as kind of friends of friends and then just friends. Independent of the friend. We're still friends with that friend, but he's no longer necessary for our friendship. um, and I think the first thing we ever did together, actually, I thought of earlier, knowing I was going to do this, was you were doing like a little short doc series, kind of with Dave doing like the jog around like Como Lake or whatever, like the run for. And you already had a logo design, but you wanted to do a little bit of animation for it,
So
kind of.
was that run for Crohn's or run from Crohn's? Because I don't think the latter would particularly work. I think it's going to catch you, dude. I think that disease is going to catch up.
You can, yeah, I remember it kind of just got off the ground, and then it and actually, if I'm remembering the story right, is I think that you were looking for help with it, and I offered to help, and then you didn't have the assets or something handy because the person that made the graphic for you had kind of gone MIA or something, and I misunderstood what you said. I thought you were waiting on them to send you the graphics to give it to me. So I was like, oh, I'll just wait for the graphics then. And then we just went, it went dead for a while because you just didn't have them, and I just thought you were waiting on them. And then I think it was Mike actually that kind of in the middle ground was like, Brad's still waiting on the thing, and then that's when I jumped in. And I think that was kind of a funny bumpy start to the whole thing, but then after that, it was kind of like random. I don't remember, like, because I remember you at one point said anytime, because I was doing a lot of just kind of quick and dirty little cartoon doodles that I would just post, just I think of a funny pun, and I would do some drawing to go with it. And then I think Brad at one point said something along the lines of like, if you're doing one that is could potentially be in some way Crohn's related or IBD related, or like could be reverse engineered that way because it had like a shit joke in it or something like that. Send it my way or kind of thing like that. And I think it kind of evolved out of that before we started actually doing like scripted ones and stuff. Because there was like some of the earliest ones, it was just like a picture of a shit with angel wings and halo. It said holy shit. And I had like Abraham Lincoln sitting on a toilet and said Lincoln logs and stuff like that. And there was a lot of just kind of weird, stupid ones like that that directly.
I think that works.
Yeah. Oh right, yeah.
Sorry, the big budget colonoscopy.
It was
Like the Titanic of colonoscopies as opposed to the mole rats of colonoscopies.
yeah, pretty much. It had but instead of James Cameron, it had Steven Spielberg in it though. So it was like Brad. I can't remember if I specifically made it like you or if it was just a random dude, but they were lying on their side, and with the doctor behind them. But then it had like a whole camera crew with like lighting techs and like a boom operator, and it had like Steven Spielberg kind of like doing this, like he was kind of trying to give direction and stuff. Um, and yeah. I think it probably was like it would have been that era where it was kind of just anything that pops in your mind, go for it. But I think it probably came out of a conversation that you probably telling me about a colonoscopy that you had or something like that. Yeah, all the photo stuff starting to kind of wiggle its way back. More of a
So
um,
just for the uninitiated, what is the Crohn's Awareness Project and what is the aim of the Crohn's Awareness Project for those listening who haven't managed to stumble on the artwork and the comedic value online? Yeah, yeah. I think I think humor as well is a fantastic way of making education more palatable. I think everyone remembers a teacher who was reasonably entertaining, and you would generally look forward to their lessons more than the one that was just firing facts at you and reading out of textbooks verbatim, and basically boring you to death. I don't know if you guys have got it over there, but over here we've got a TV show called Horrible Histories, which my kids absolutely adore, and they frame historical periods, but with comedy. So it's got funny songs, and there's a talking rat that introduces it all, and it's so good that adults watch it over here. It's fantastic. But I think that speaks volumes for how important humor is, and especially with something like IBD, which is inflammatory bowel disease, which is Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, which are horrible chronic illnesses to live with. But if you can laugh at the not so much at the disease, but you can laugh at the circumstances that the disease puts you in, it makes it more human, and it makes it more relatable to people. So I mean, we've talked about this before, but as this is the first official podcast, I'll put it out there. I wasn't diagnosed until this summer with IBD, um, and my lack of knowledge, despite being a healthcare professional for 15 years is slightly embarrassing. Um, but the stuff I've learnt from it since, from the Crohn's Awareness Project and other bits and bobs, the stuff that sticks with you is the stuff that makes you laugh. So you know it's fantastically important to have that light and dark together. Um, you know, I was told I was going to lose my bowel. Touch wood. Haven't up to this point, but so I came up with the hashtag no guts, no glory, purely as a dark, morose um, thought on where I was at the time. So yeah, humour's massively important. So this kind of leads me on to my next question for you, Dylan. How have you found? So, given what I've just said about me not really knowing much about this community until I was diagnosed, from an outsider looking in, how did you know anything about IBD, Crohn's, colitis before you were chatting with Brad and doing the Crohn's Awareness Project? And secondary question, do you feel now you are well educated in the field and your opinion of chronic illness is slightly different to what it would have been 10 years ago before you got involved?
I definitely feel very educated on it now. Still, I mean, I would still refer to Brad for any like real questions on it. And I would probably preface most things I would say about it to the uninitiated with "Don't quote me on this" kind of thing. But I feel relatively confident in at least the broad strokes of it. Um, and I think having not only just because of the involvement with Cap, but just by being friends with Brad, I think have a I don't know, just kind of a firsthand account of what any kind of chronic illness can kind of do to a person and how frustrating it can be, what a downer it can sometimes be, and you know the ups and downs that come with it, and all that kind of stuff. Before getting involved, I mean, like I was aware Crohn's was a thing, but that was pretty much the extent of it. I knew that there was
Same.
I knew that there was a condition called Crohn's, and it had something to do with like the digestive system and stuff, and that was about it. I think my mom's friend's daughter, or maybe even the daughter's friend, somebody had it, and so like I heard a little bit about it. That was the first time I ever heard of it, but it was like a fifth-hand account or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I got to know it a little bit more through Brad, and then much more so when we started actually doing the comics and stuff. Because then even if Brad wasn't just volunteering information, or if I wasn't asking, I would kind of extrapolate stuff just from what I was being asked to draw and things like that. And if it wasn't clear, then I'd have to ask, okay, so what is this? Because I need to know how to draw it, and then I would kind of get the full explanation,
Yeah.
and like, or I would just Google it.
I was really hoping you were going to say you had the groomsmen dressed up as colons for a minute. Then that, that would have been brilliant. That would have
As
that would have been a confusing image, but brilliant nonetheless.
that was really bad. And humming the Mission Impossible theme music as well, but that's before any free.
Naked Gun the wedding.
Yeah.
And you post a lot online. Very good.
Yeah, and cap is a lot to because I think we were because it was a lot of me just kind of coming over to visit that friend, and then Brett would be there, and then the conversation, like we were definitely getting closer through that, but it was kind of a slow progression. And then once cap started, it was like it became like daily conversations and stuff. Um, or I don't even know if it counts as daily conversations. I think it's more just like one big long conversation that hasn't stopped since 2013. Uh, yeah. I mean, like you said, I would second guess myself on any of the science that I would kind of pull out. But I think probably mostly just in the impact that it has on people's lives through my kind of eyewitness accounts of your own life. Largely because of energy and stuff like that. You know, we're both creative people and everything too, and like I get really frustrated when I get just distracted away from something that I want to work on. And I've witnessed that happen with Brad because of health concerns and stuff. A lot. Or had to cancel photo shoots and things like that, including some that I was like going to go help with, and then it'd be like, no, we're canceling it, either because Brad himself realized he wasn't up to it, or other people involved were like they would take a look at him and be like, you know what, now's not the time, Brad, and a lot of that kind of stuff. Um, as well
So
as being
how
on the creative pursuits, just things in general and stuff. And I remember coming over at one point and to drop something off, and Brad could barely get out of bed, and everything, the way the energy drained out of him that day and stuff. Um, so I think that's probably what I've uh, like I said, I would second guess myself on any of the science of it, but I can feel pretty confident when I know how it can hit people and how hard it can hit people, and in some of the different ways that it can hit people. And actually, another thing too, I'll add to kind of the earlier question as well is uh, I've actually had people where I've actually recommended they go to the because they'll tell me about some ailment or something that they're having, and I'll actually suggest like go to this website that I do cartoons on and see if it checks any boxes for you, because maybe this is why you're had there was one friend I remember at a party, a birthday party for somebody a few years ago, that just all of a sudden bottomed out like really fast, and it was just like his stomach was ripping apart and that, and that was kind of one of the I remember giving him that advice, and then one of my because I teach, that hasn't come, but everyone doesn't know I teach, and one of my students missed a whole bunch of classes one time, and it was because of some digestive thing that the doctor couldn't figure out. And I think too, if I'm remembering right, Brad was having issues for a while before anybody figured out it was Crohn's. So this person telling me that they didn't really know what was causing this didn't make me think, oh well, then it can't be Crohn's. It made me think, well, it could be Crohn's, because I know for sure, I know this has happened at least once before
yeah.
where nobody could figure it out at first. So um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's and I imagine there's an awful lot of people out there who have the similar symptoms of needing to run to the toilet at very little notice. But it's
yeah,
not until things get serious that you often find out the reason for what you assume at the time is something fairly mundane. You know, you
yeah. I
oh,
think
that's
that's
good.
because it's such a because sometimes just something just disagrees with you, and it'll cause something like that, right? So it's so easy to
Precisely, yeah, yeah.
that,
There's always an excuse with your stomach, especially. There's
yeah,
always an excuse like, oh, I ate this, or the chicken could have been bad, or
yeah,
it's just a stomach bug. There's always an excuse as to why you don't get yourself checked out. It's interesting actually that so I noticed an advert on the TV today. I've not seen it before, where there's a guy who's basically had diarrhea for 3 weeks, and discovers it's colon cancer, um, which it was going through my mind when I was struggling. That was my initial thought, and the advert was basically, just seek help. If you're having 2 3 weeks of diarrhea, seek help. If you're having any of these issues where it's not normal, seek help. There's nothing wrong with it. We shouldn't be ashamed to
Yeah.
talk about it. And the fact that you're empowered to be an advocate for that is fantastic, and it's it shows the power of shared knowledge. Even though yourself you haven't gone through this, but people who have, you've been able to impart that knowledge on other people, and that's fantastic. One thing that you said there that I wanted to follow up on was the cancellation of work. Now, we've all been in this situation through our lives where you've got a project and someone just rings you up and says, "Oh, I can't do it today," and gives you a fairly flaky excuse. Now, I know from my own personal experience that would really piss me off at times. If you're geared up to do some work or do a side project or a hobby, and it gets cancelled at the last minute. I just wondered what your mindset is now compared to 10 years ago. So if Brad were to ring you 10 years ago and say, "Look, dude, I can't do this today," would you be more inclined to think, "For fuck's sake, you're cancelling on me at the last minute. This isn't good." And how would you feel now if Brad were to ring you and say, I can't do this project tomorrow or whatever? Has your mindset changed in that sense? Because it is a frustrating thing for all of us. I think the person who is cancelling with best intentions and the person who's cancelled on, it's always frustrating. But has your I don't know. I mean, I've only met you through this interview. I'm probably projecting some of my bitterness and anger at humanity onto you. But if someone would cancel on me, I would generally get pissed off. Now, having lived through it, I would be a bit more forgiving. What's your experience of that in terms of how you felt at the time?
Well, in terms of that particular example I used with Brad, like that was because that was really Brad's project that I was gonna help him carry lights around and things like that. So
Okay.
it was the roles were almost more flipped. It kind of wasn't like he was like his project was contingent on me and I bailed. It was his own project and he had to pause it. So I didn't necessarily have the same investment in the project where like, oh my, now I got to reschedule everybody and all that kind of stuff necessarily. So in that particular scenario, it wasn't necessarily a huge thing. It was more like, oh, well, I hope you're feeling better kind of situation. But I probably, under other circumstances, might lean a little bit closer to what you were describing, Dan, because I can definitely be frustrated when people bail at the last minute.
I'm just
And I
frustrated
think
with
that,
people, full stop.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I think that the thing with that is it's kind of another reason to try to just be like open and transparent when you got something going on, right? Because there are definitely flaky people that will bail on you just because they don't care, and that there's not really ever an excuse for that. Like that's always going to piss you off, and that's always annoying. And if they don't give, and so somebody bails on you and they don't give a reason, or they haven't pre-established the possibility of something like this maybe coming up, then I think it's only natural for people to be frustrated with it, right? But if they're open about it, and like and apologetic, of course, as well is and polite, all that stuff, then I think it's very different. I do think that like whether I don't know if this is necessarily changed because of a result of that, or just as you get older and you get a little bit more mature and stuff. I do try to think about when something inconveniences me, I will try to, and a person annoys me, I will try to give some thought to what their side of things is, because there might be something going on that you're not aware. Um, but I do think that is like I feel like I mean it's super cheesy and kind of cliched, but I think the more honest people are with people, the better everybody would get along. Because I think that a lot of times there is a good reason to bail on somebody, but if you don't give them that reason, then they have every right to be pissed off, right? And so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's true.
That's that's a great plug there. Well done. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Reach. Yeah.
Well, going into it was weird because I didn't know it was a thing I was going into because my what I'm dealing with is it's called pericarditis, and what it is it's an inflammation of the pericardium, which is a like the protective sac that kind of wraps around your heart. And it's a pretty common thing. Apparently, most common in men aged as broad of a range as 16 to 65, from my research, which is pretty broad. And it can be caused by a lot of different things. It can be viral infection. Sometimes you get sick with one thing and it will cause this inflammation, including like physical injury. Apparently, can do it. Like you take like a blow to the chest or something. Which my theory about why it's more common in men as young as 16 is because guys are stupid and they do a lot of really dumb shit that might hurt their chest. That's kind of the theory I came to from that research. But it's not something that which is typically supposed to be chronic. It's usually just treated with anti-inflammatories, and it's not uncommon for it to kind of flare up here and there over a period of time before it kind of disappears entirely. So it's not supposed to be like a lifelong thing. There are other complications that can arise from it, but for the most part, it's not that huge of a deal. But in my case, what was weird is I was getting it first started in December of last year, so almost a year ago now. And I just had chest pains, and it wasn't the first time I'd had this, but it felt a bit worse. I think I probably anxiety probably made it a bit worse in that moment too, because it was Omicron was on the rise at the time. I was about 2 days away from going to spend a week with my parents for Christmas, and then paranoid about giving it to them and stuff like that. So that probably made it a bit worse. And I started looking to see if that was maybe a COVID symptom, and then it said it's not really a COVID symptom, but if you're feeling chest pains, you should definitely go to the emergency room. So I did, and I spent there. I was there the whole day before they figured it out. They did like for about 10 hours. They did a bunch of tests and stuff. The main reason is because the machine broke and they had to wait to all this fixed. And then they figured out what it was. And once they knew what it was, they didn't seem that concerned about it. And they said like take this extra basically extra strength aspirin 3 days, 3 times a day for like 2 weeks, and follow up with your family doctor. So I immediately felt better. Just the anxiety element was gone because they didn't seem too concerned about it because it was so common. And so I started doing the aspirin thing. Like a day or two later, I wasn't even feeling the chest pains at all. So I was feeling pretty good about it. What sucked though, which I didn't fully appreciate at the time, was that they said to follow up with your family doctor, and just out of really bad luck, my family doctor retired about 3 days before my hospital visit. Um, so I started looking for a doctor right away, but because they seemed so unconcerned about it, and because the pain went away so fast, I wasn't necessarily as proactive with it as I probably should have been trying to find that doctor at first. And then in February, it came back like that, and so then it was like, and when I had read about it, it said like it can sometimes come back or whatever. So I felt better knowing what it was, and I was like, okay, I'll do my aspirin thing again. But now I'm became a lot more proactive with trying to find that doctor, and we have a bit of a doctor shortage going on in BC right now. Well, I think all of Canada, but BC, I think has got it.
I
Um,
think most of the Western world has a doctor shortage at the
yeah,
moment.
So it took me a really long time to find a doctor. Just like finding ones that were accepting patients that were also like close enough that it wasn't, when you're in need of a doctor, you're not in the mood to be in the car for 3 hours, right? So you're trying to find one reasonably close that's accepting and then getting accepted. I had one that like I couldn't get anybody on the phone. I filled out a thing online. They were like, good to go. And then like a week and a half later, I got an email saying that I'd been rejected and they wouldn't tell me why. But there was like a button that was like, click here if you want to make a different appointment. And I'm like, well, if it's a scheduling conflict, then maybe it's worth it. But if I'm not like sick enough for you, then I'm not going to waste my time with you. And then so I eventually did find somebody. And then once I saw them, they sent me they put in a referral for me to talk to a cardiologist. Because also in my research, it said there was another drug that they would prescribe usually if symptoms kept coming back, but I had to get a doctor to do that. And so he said he was gonna refer me to a cardiologist. Then I finally saw the cardiologist. He kind of checked me out. He sent me for like an echocardiogram to make sure there was any other complications with my heart or anything like that. I wasn't at that moment having symptoms because they would kind of come and go, and he didn't want to give me drugs for something that I wasn't currently experiencing in case it had finally kind of subsided. So I went off to do the test. I did the test, then I went back to the cardiologist to go over the results. And just out of coincidence, part of me almost thinks this was a good thing timing wise, but who knows? I actually had another flare up like that week. So when I went back to talk to him about the test results, I told him, and I'm actually having the pains again right now. And the test results showed that my heart was working totally fine. There wasn't any complications. It was just the pericarditis. And because I was experiencing it, he said, okay, here's what we'll do. Here's the magic ingredient. Apparently, with the aspirin thing, after the 2 weeks, I was supposed to continue with the aspirin, but do increasingly less doses. Like I was supposed to decrease every 2. But they never told me that at the hospital. And in their defense, they told me to go talk to my family doctor, who probably would have told me that if I had been able. And apparently, that tapering is like a huge part of the whole like drug therapy because I guess you kind of get used to having this drug helping you out and then it's just gone. So then I guess you're kind of like you're in shock or whatever. So it put me on so he gave me the proper guidance for the proper like tapering method. And I'm almost done with that now. I think tomorrow's my last day on the aspirin. And then colchicine, which is this like heavy duty anti-inflammatory that like gout patients tend to take. I'm supposed to take 2 of those a day till for about 3 months, which will take me to December. So assuming this actually clears it up, it will have been about a year since I first found out what it was. And so, like I said, it's not really a chronic thing. It's something that should have kind of been dealt with in the matter of a couple of months, but because of my awkward timing with that doctor retiring, it kind of became a chronic thing over the whole course of the year because it seemed to flare up every like 3 to 4 weeks. And then when it would flare up, I would be trying to take it easy. And so I would just be like, okay, I guess I'm spending the week on the couch now. And then anything else I had on the go would have to just kind of get put on pause. And so it's been a weird year for that. Which like you said, I haven't really had any major health issues, and I don't even know if this counts as a major health issue. It was just bad timing more than anything, I think. But also anything to do with like you're feeling chest pains that actually like freaks you out a little bit.
Y-
Yeah,
So how? Yeah. So I was just about to say you did exactly the right thing. If you get chest pains, you go to the hospital.
yeah,
That's that's rule number one. So the thing I'm interested in though, you say it wasn't a chronic illness, but you were suffering with this illness for a year, which is pretty chronic. It's like you say, it's not a lifetime thing, but a year is a long time, and when you've got this pain coming and going, and there's uncertainty about what the pain is, because I'm, I'm assuming once you've had chest pain and you're told that it is your heart, but it's the lining of your heart, and then it goes away and it comes like back again. There's always going to be a niggling doubt there that
yeah,
maybe this
yeah.
time it isn't the lining of the heart. So, what effect has this had on you mental health wise in the last year?
Um, I I guess like it. I don't know. I almost feel like the effect has almost been a little bit more indirect in a way. We talked about earlier about how when you're working on a project, you have to put it on pause and stuff. I've been working on a project of my own over the course of the year, and I had set what I thought was a pretty reasonable goal for myself. Where it's a comic book project, and it was going to be like 10 different chapters, and my goal was to get one chapter done a month. And I could often get one done as fast as 3 months. So to me, a one a month was kind of giving myself some breathing room and everything. But then because this thing would kick in, I would just stop doing everything. I would still go to work, but at home I would just take it as easy as possible. So it's kind of just everything would have to just go on pause for about a week, a month basically, and that just got frustrating because now it feels like I'm falling behind in this. And it's a personal project. It's kind of my own pressure I put on myself because it's my own self-imposed deadline. But like I'm excited to get it out, obviously, and you've set out to do this ambitious project. You don't want to just sit there, right? So that really frustrated me, and then that made me. I've always got I got a little bit of a workaholic gene, I think, in me for sure. But I think when stuff is preventing me from actually working on it, then it starts to kind of mount where I get to like now it's just like now I just want to make up for lost time, and I'm kind of in obsessive mode, and I never got to really fully catch up and then settle out again because every time I got caught up, the thing would flare up and I would be down again. And so I think that kind of affected my mood and stuff throughout the whole year. In fact, I kind of got on a bit of a roll there where I felt like it wasn't coming back for a little bit, and then I got COVID for a week. That was a fun bit of irony there. So I think that's the big thing. It's also another weird element to it, I guess, as well. Is like I've never been a gym rat by any stretch of the imagination, but I am aware of how much time I spend at drawing tables and computers and stuff. So I try to make an effort to do, have at least a little bit of exercise a day. Even sometimes I just do like jumping jacks or something. And I moved not that long ago, and there's a gym right on my corner, and I was like, I'm finally gonna join a gym, do proper workouts on the reg basically. And so I did that in towards the end of January. Um, so I had my bout in December, but it hadn't flared up again yet. So I thought it was all done with. And then so I joined this gym, and like I was pretty regimented for like the first couple weeks, and was feeling pretty good that I was actually keeping up with this and stuff. And I was like, this is really good for me. This is kind of I'm gonna leaping my health forward a little bit. And then the flare up happened, and then I had to stop. And then I went back, and then the flare up happened again. So then I stopped. And then every time a flare up would happen, I would read more about it, and sometimes I would just find stuff I had missed before. And one of the things was that usually when you're recovering from this, you're supposed to kind of refrain from intense exercise for like 3 months. So so then I was like, okay, maybe that's why I came back. So now I'm not. Now I'm not only am I not going to the gym, I'm like avoiding hills and the whole nine yards. And then uh, and then so then I'm thinking, well, okay, like I'm still trying to find a doctor this whole time, but I'm thinking if I go 3 months without a flare up, then maybe I'm good. But then it would keep coming back and all that stuff. So I've been paying for a gym membership for this entire year that I've barely used, and and that was sort of like to go from at least doing some minimal exercise on a daily basis to trying to improve on that and then suddenly not being able to do it at all. I think has also maybe had a little bit of an effect on me. Like I've been trying to like be a bit more mindful. I mean, I try to eat somewhat healthy-ish anyway, but I have a good sweet tooth and stuff, and I'm kind of like I feel a lot guiltier about it now that I'm not even allowed to burn calories. I was like, whatever I eat now, I'm just it's just gonna be with me for a while. So I think that kind of had a weird effect on me now. And now that I'm hopefully almost out of it, I'm in a better headspace for about that for a while. But I was a little worried that my lack of exercise is maybe going to cause me some other issues or something along the lines as well too. Um, but yeah, so I guess that also had an element as well as far as the health thing. But again, kind of indirect, I guess. It's just kind of the having everything to. But I guess it's the same thing with any kind of health issue, right? It prevents you from doing certain things, and once you can't do those certain things, then that affects you and all that stuff. Yeah, yeah,
I think this think this actually rings true of something Dylan just said, that the worst pressure you have is the pressure you put on yourself. So the moment your projects are taken away from you, or you're having to slow down, you then start to heap the pressure on yourself that you need to be faster, you need to be better, you need to be more accomplished than you were before, when maybe you're not physically or mentally able to do that, and it just becomes a cycle, a vicious cycle of pressure and self-loathing almost, that you're not able to do the things you want to do.
Very much.
And it's important that you have people who will actually just sometimes say to you, stop being a dick. Give yourself a break. Yeah,
Part of it,
precisely. Give you
yeah,
a bit of a slap around and say, come on,
yeah.
be
Part of
kind to
it
yourself and get
too
on with it.
is once you're doing better and you're able to kind of get back in the swing of things, now you're kind of going extra hard to try to make up for that lost
Yep.
time. But going extra hard maybe makes you backslide on the whole thing as well, because now you're not resting enough and stuff like that.
Yep.
Mm.
You sure it was prednisone? It wasn't just amphetamine they were pumping you full of.
I think you might have just written a new fund, by the way, there, Crash. This, I'm doing it right now. But add to the list.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
Yeah. Let's start. Actually, I guess
Oh, talk shit for long enough and you're bound to get a golden nugget out of there somewhere.
I
That's the aim of the podcast, let's be honest. We're just talking shit for hours and hoping some of it sticks.
Well, I mean, my biggest thing was just the doctor shortage because my bad luck of having my doctor retire right before this happened. That was the biggest thing, and it was frustrating. And like I said too, like the one doctor that I mentioned, where I couldn't get anybody on the phone. and then so I filled out their online form, and then they wait a week and a half to tell me it's canceled, but they don't tell me why. And then if I clicked that button and tried to do it again, it might have been another week and a half, and then it would have been canceled again since I didn't know the reason. And I don't love the facelessness of that, because maybe there is a good reason why they're prioritizing certain patients over me, maybe, but you're not telling me that. And even if there is a good reason, you're not telling me that I'm being rejected. You're just saying I can't meet you now, but I'm waiting on a confirmation for the appointment and an approval to be your patient. And you're just saying no flat out. You're not telling me what you're saying no to. And to make a person that clearly has something going on, because even if I didn't have, like, if you're seeking out a doctor, there's a reasonable chance you've got something going on, I would assume, and of some level of severity. And even if it's the most minor of things, it's still something that's impacting your life and you want to deal with. And I think that you should respect that enough to, if you can't help them, fine, but help, give them that note as soon as possible so they can continue their search elsewhere and all that kind of stuff. Um, that was probably my biggest frustration that I experienced with all of it. Once I actually did get my doctor and get the cardiologist, and the cardiologist has been really good, and really fast on things as well, especially to like when I went and I had my echocardiogram test. It was only, I think it was less than a week before the cardiologist called me and to set up an appointment to go over the results, which honestly freaked me out a little bit because I figured if they're that quick, if they want to see me that fast, like, how did they find? Um, but it was just to tell me that everything was fine. So like it was just like so he was really good about it. And then also like the and Kim, his receptionist, I guess would be the title. I'm not really sure. Like she's been good too because I set up my appointment to get my booster, my second booster, fourth shot, I guess whatever you call it. And then I realized like maybe I should make sure that it's okay to get this while I'm still on this drug therapy. So I called and she made sure to get on it right away to talk to him and get me an answer so that I could either get the booster or postpone the booster if I had to. And so I was really impressed with how quick she was on that as well. So like I guess once I was in it, things went pretty smoothly, but I don't think it should have been the bumpy road that it was to get there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it, I think too, because you always have to go through them before you get to the doctor, and they're the ones that can can decide sometimes whether or not you're going to see that doctor, right? And if you can't, they can maybe at least put your mind at ease that it's going to happen, or that maybe it's not as urgent as you maybe thought it was, or whatever you need to be. I did think of a couple. There were a couple other bumps along. I don't know if you want to get into them or not, but like well, I went kind of a shit story actually. Um, for when I
On
finally
brand.
got to the doctor, and he sent me for a blood test and a urine test. And not actually to anything to do with the pericarditis. That was just like I was a new patient, and so just like a standard thing. And it was the first time in my life I think I've ever done a urine test. And so I made the earliest appointment I could get, I think was like 11 o'clock, and I was supposed to fast before it and everything. So that was a little frustrated. I was hoping to get first thing so that my fasting was just well to sleep and everything like that is the general rule of thumb there. But at least it wasn't like crazy late that I was like dying of hunger necessarily. But about 20 minutes. So I'm purposely not pissing because I want to make sure that I have piss from. And then about 20 minutes before I went into the life labs, I realized I had to take a shit. Um, but I didn't want to go because I knew that if I did that, it wouldn't be able to stop the flood that's going to follow it. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna keep this with me until I do this test. And then I went in there and they were super backed up, and I was in the waiting room for at least an hour past my appointment, maybe even longer. And I kind of thought, but I figured once I got there, because I knew that they would need like a nurse or somebody to be ready with the chair and everything to do the blood test. But I figured for the urine test, as soon as I register, they just hand me a cup because I'm doing that part on my own. Like you don't need anybody. And but they didn't do it. And then when they called me, I was like, well, maybe they'll give me the cup before they do the blood test. But they didn't. I do the blood test first. And then I'm also like, I don't handle blood very well. I have a lot of stories about I'm okay with other people's blood. I love horror movies, but my own blood, like no. I even have a from the hospital last year. I have a pretty good blood story as well. Um, and so I was kind of worried. So when I'm getting blood drawn, sometimes I'll usually snap out of it in a couple of minutes, but I'll have that little like ugh, kind of moment, you know. And now I'm worried, like I'm holding this shit. So if I do, if I get the blood drawn and it makes me at all woozy, lightheaded, is it just gonna just go? Like, am I gonna, can I be faint and clench at the same time? Was the question I was asking the entire time. I was getting the blood drawn, and it worked out fine in the end. But it was a scary
High
scary time in
stakes.
that blood share. Yeah. Uh, and like I said, the hospital experience itself, like I was a mixed bag. I had some of the people that I talked with there were great. One thing that really impressed me because I was there so long that the first doctor that kind of checked me out ended up going off shift before I was gone. And he made a point of calling me the next day to make sure I was doing okay, since he wasn't able to kind of see me through from point A to point B. And the replacement when he left was really good as well. But I also had to like the when you first get in up at the counter, not only with the way that I was being treated, more actually less with the way I was being treated and more with the way I witnessed other people. It was a bit of a mixed bag. And then the nurses were sometimes a bit of a mix. There were some that were awesome, but there were some that were like really seemed to care at all, or even sometimes even think out what they were asking of you, which I thought was, and I'm a bit more forgiving there because I also realized I've probably been dealing with like a lot of bullshit probably in that ER, especially recently with all the COVID panic and all that kind of stuff. So some of the ones that were maybe not the best might on other occasions be like the best people imaginable. So I'll try to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt for that. But in the moment, even if you understand intellectually, in the moment when you're not feeling great or you're freaked out about something medically, you can't really. It doesn't matter if you understand intellectually. You're kind of just like why don't you care more? And that can be a frustrating thing to experience or witness. Like I said, I think I felt more for some of the other people that were in line at that waiting room that looked like they could barely hold themselves up, that weren't necessarily paying attention. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And had
yeah,
a lot of shit in that shift.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And the difficulty is as well, especially depending on where you are in the hospital, you don't know what that nurse has just come out from.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I was a nurse for 10 years, and there were times where you'd come out from holding a family member's hand while you're telling them that their family member's going to die. And then you come out to someone complaining that their tea's not warm enough. And you
yeah,
just think, yeah, come on, guys.
yeah,
And, it's hard to maintain the positivity at all times when sometimes in a hospital things are really shit.
yeah,
And you can see some horrendous things, and you're expected to just carry on.
yeah,
Um, so that's not a defense. I've worked with a few really shit nurses who I've questioned as to why they're in the profession. But at the same time, I've worked with some fantastic nurses who have bad days.
yeah,
As we all do. That's just part of being human, being fallible. And as we mentioned earlier, we have to be a little bit forgiving of our flaky tendencies at times and
yeah.
try and see things from the other side.
Yeah, well, it's like anybody in the service industry puts up with so much bullshit, but then
Yeah,
on the medical side of it, it's not just that you've got the public coming through like somebody at a restaurant or something might, but it's a panicky public because those people
yeah,
are out about
yeah,
themselves
yeah,
or they, so it's kind of it's the serve it's every the stuff that the service industry puts up with, but like on steroids probably.
yeah, yeah. And we have this new phenomenon, which is, well, it's not so much new, but it's far much greater than it used to be, of people who are adamant they know better because of some thread they've read on Twitter,
Yeah, yeah,
especially with like the anti-vax movement and what have you,
oh yeah,
um, who you can't convince they're not right. You
yeah,
can't convince that what you're doing is for their health and for the better good. I'd left nursing by the time COVID rolled round, but knew an awful lot of people who were still dealing with it, and with people who were, you know, really sick, but still insisting they did not have COVID because it didn't exist.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I can never imagine how you slap on a smile in that situation
Oh
and
yeah,
say, no, you really need to wear a mask because, you know, you're
yeah,
spreading this disease around this hospital. And they're just like, no, 'cause it doesn't exist. You're lying
yeah,
to me. It's just,
yeah. And I guess like the frustration I'll feel about that topic just from seeing a total stranger leave some shitty comment on something on Facebook or something,
yeah,
and like that'll get me worked up. Can't even
yeah,
imagine if I have the person right in front of me say something like that. And
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and themselves. Especially early on in COVID, we didn't know how badly it was going to affect people on the front line. Um, but we've probably swayed slightly off topic. But yeah, we're going to get absolutely slammed by the anti-vaxxers in the comments when this is posted. It's usually a good motivator. Yeah, the risk of death usually does focus the mind somewhat.
It's all Adam's cartoons, but on Twitter it's singular for some reason. Like I think they've since updated it, but when I first joined Twitter, I think there was like a character limit on the name itself, and it wouldn't let me add the S. So it's the only place where it's slightly different, but it's. I think if you search Adam's cartoons, it would still come up though. I don't think there's any other Adam's cartoons. Yeah.
No, no, that's fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Dylan. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to meet you. By the way, I've been hearing about you since you guys started to set this up. So nice to meet you and put a digital face to the name as well.
You too. Yeah. What happens in the interview? Yeah.
Well, as a
Yeah,
podcast
decent.
listener, I like that because I listen to most of my podcasts in the background while I'm working on stuff, and for the better. It's, if it's a short thing, it sucks if you have to stop every 30 to 40 minutes to try to find your next thing. So the long form stuff is always, and you get a bit more out of people that way, I think too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I will. I will do that. And I'll send you the file that I've been recording here. It's been recording for an hour and 12 minutes. I see. Yeah. Um. Okay. Cool. Then I'll see you guys.
See you later, mate.
Have a good one.
Bye. Yep. Episode 1 interview. Yep. It's just saving. What's that? That's that one. To the share file, can I just drag and drop into this? Right, so let's get to where are we wanting it to go to? Episode 1. Yeah, will do. Go up. Where is podcast recordings? Yeah, got it. Someone creeping around upstairs. Yeah, it won't drag and drop into the. Yep. Okay, no worries. Yep. It won't let me drag and drop into it, so. Oh, bollocks. Yeah, don't know why. Yeah, it's because it's under Amelia, that's why. Yeah. Okay. It's not letting me drag it at all. It's not. Yeah. Okay. Now where is it? So it's episode 1 interview. What? Just hang on a second. Right. Right. Where is it? Why not working? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Right, hang on. Let's see if I can drag it from there then. There we go. It's uploading. Yeah, that's me. I'm just going to nip to the toilet. I'll be back in 30 seconds. Okay. The interview should be with you now. Yeah. And so how do you want to do this? I've just hit record. Last line of the intro. Okay. Yes. No, that would be good. Oh, where's it gone? Let me just. Yeah. Just need to find the intro again. Yeah. No, it's not. Episode 1 intro. There we go. Yeah. It's, yeah. Cool. All right. So do you want me to do each episode we start? Okay. Each episode, we start with one of the big questions. A question as old as Father Time. A question that has plagued all the great thinkers and philosophers of our time. Brad, how is your shit? first sounds better. The ileoscopy sounds like a failed photocopy. All about the colon. Fitting. Yep. Yeah. No. None of which you can do with a colonoscopy prep. You're flushing out the system. You're taking drugs to evacuate everything you've ever absorbed. Everything but your soul is flushed out with colonoscopy prep. Yeah, so I get this joy that I've been listed for an emergency scope. So whenever we get round to that, but when I was in hospital and I had a scope, they gave me the prep about an hour before the scope. So and it was agony because I was in the middle of a flare. So my colon was angry and aggravated and screaming and torturing me and on fire and everything just horrible. So when I did the prep in hospital, it was ridiculously painful. Um, it's the only way to put it. So I'm slightly nervous, shall we say, about what the prep's going to be like this time. I the rational side of my brain is saying it can't be as painful as what it was, but I'm well aware that I'm just going to be sat on a toilet for a lifetime and a half in preparation. So, but anyway, oh, yeah, we'll just say in your case, there's no butthole to go in through. That's fine. Yeah. And then they said, "You know, you can wear your boxers, Mr. Devlar," and you were slightly upset and insistent on not wearing them. And then the security was called, and that's why you had to find a new hospital. Um, okay. That's just me. Anyway, sorry, carry on. Gastroscopy. There we go. Yeah, gastroscopy. Said put your willy away. Didn't even buy you a drink first. Oh, yeah, yeah. You can imagine. That's some fairly interesting shit. Um, I can't top that. Which brings us on perfectly to our first guest. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, that was a fantastic chat. Thanks very much to Dylan at Outhouse Comics, Outhouse Cartoons. Let's start that again. So, is Dylan Moore at Outhouse Cartoons? Right. Okay. Well, thanks to Dylan. That was a fantastic chat. Dylan Moore at Outhouse Cartoons. If you want to catch his stuff, some fantastic animation. So, what were your take homes from that conversation, Brad? Yeah, I thought it was a couple of really telling um, key phrases, I suppose you could say, which I imagine are going to come up time and time again. So, with you guys working on the Crohn's project together, he's almost unwillingly been dragged into a point of advocacy. And one of the key things that he brought up, which I don't think he registered that he'd brought it up, was the need for transparency and the need for people to just be open and honest about their health, their mental health, their physical health, their well-being. And it was, in that context, it was about, if you can't make a commitment for a health reason, to say it's for a health reason. But wider than that, it's being open and honest with yourself, with those around you, and with healthcare professionals about if you have symptoms, if something's not right, seek help, talk to people, don't bottle it up. You bottle it up, it only ends badly. I think that's a really key takeaway from that conversation. Um, Another one that really we touched on the back of that when we were talking about hospital care, and I think this links in quite nicely is the face-to-face communication. I think we've lost an awful lot through being able to text people, through being able to email people. You often, if you're in a low mood and you get an email, you're likely to interpret what is said in that email in a negative stance. Now, if you're suffering from a chronic illness, you're more likely to be struggling with low mood or poor mental health. So, if the communication is purely driven through text or through email, whether it be with your hospital or be with people you work with or with friends, the likelihood is that you're always going to see it in a fairly negative standpoint. So, this is probably um, I don't know. So for people struggling with IBD like me or you or other chronic illnesses, it's important to address this issue with those around you and with your colleagues and say, look, talk to me, pick up the phone. You know, a phone conversation still isn't face to face, but it's far better than a text conversation because there's still far more triggers that you can actually understand when people are being sympathetic and not sarcastic, which precisely that. So I think that's another important one. And then the key feature to finish it off for me is, three is the magic number. The thing about pressuring yourself, heaping pressure on yourself is unavoidable for us all. We all do it, but at the same time, we have to be aware that we are doing it. And we have to be aware that we can't put so much pressure on ourselves to be something that we can't be. So for me this week, I've been absolutely jiggered. I'm not sure jiggered is a term that translates particularly well to North America, um, but just tired out. And not that I can still do my job and I can still talk to people, but I have to explain to my wife and kids that this week I'm just tired, guys. I need to just have a little rest now and then. Um, And I think these are three really key points that came up from this conversation. So openness and honesty with yourself and with others, essentially, is what it all boils down to. So, yeah, I think there was a really good chat. It was, like you say, interesting to get the feedback from someone who has supported you through your um, illness over the last few years, who has come to this community from the outside, shall we say. So yeah, I thought it was good. Was anything specifically you took from it? Well, if you want, I can just do an outro on the back of what I've just said and edit it together. Fine. So I'll just wrap up and say, so thank you to, oh, sorry. So guys, that's about it. Thank you to, so guys, that's it for episode 1 of the Brad and Dan Talking Shit podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. Tune in next time when we'll have another fabulous guest. But for now, thank you to Dylan, thank you to Brad, and thank you from me. Goodbye. Okay. I mean, we can always touch up the intro and the outro at other points if we need to. If there's anything glaring that needs to be addressed. So one thing that did jump out at me during that conversation